Whew. Hello, everybody. This is Charlie from RedBlueTalk. My channel is all about how politics and government impact people's lives. This is a weekly live stream at 6:30 Monday nights. It is Monday, August 5, 2019, and there's a lot going on in the world, and there's a lot going on in Mt Vernon. There's a lot going on in New Rochelle, and the places that I have a tendency to talk about and gravitate toward because I've lived there and currently live there. And so there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about on tonight's live stream. First, I want to say that a couple of you may have gotten a note from me that I was supposed to be on a show last night called People Before Politics. So I don't know whether I've actually talked about it. The folks at Black Westchester Magazine have been very generous to RedBlueTalk and to Charlie Stern, and I've been a guest on People Before Politics, which is a Sunday night internet radio show. Great show, 6 p.m. every Sunday night to 8 p.m. Last night, A.J. Woodson, the publisher of Black Westchester and the publisher of People Before Politics, the host of People Before Politics, asked me to come on the show, talk about things that are going on in Mt Vernon. And for the first time in 5 years, the show is postponed. And it's unfortunate because I prepared a whole bunch of little video clips, and so I'm going to share those with you tonight. So I was kind of disappointed, but we'll get. I think the show's going to be back on this coming Sunday. I'll keep everybody informed and notified. And folks, as you come into the stream, and I see we have a couple people, it would be personally meaningful to me if you could click the share button, because that way other people can find out about the stream. And of course, the more people we have in here, the more I get comments, the more there is to talk about, and which is really the whole purpose of the channel. It's really only a show if you're here. So click share, and when you share, about 25 or so of your friends will find out about it. And then if they click share, and so on, and so on, and so on, you know how that works. So I guess the first thing to talk about tonight is, this was like, you know, when these mass shootings happen, it's not good. It's a gut-wrenching thing every time it happens. It's gut-wrenching in between when you think about it. And, you know, I looked up on Twitter, and there are a couple of trending topics on Twitter that relate to the mass shootings, but you would be surprised at how much other stuff is going on in the world that is trending that has nothing to do with the mass shootings in El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio. And there's just some pretty striking things there. You know, if there's any super loyal followers on here, and I don't expect anybody to remember this far back, but in 2017, one of the very first, I would say, experimental live streams that I did when I first figured out the whole live streaming setup, I was working on it all day. I made like 8 live streams, short, long, different things. I was trying different things with lighting, and I was trying to really figure out the technical particulars of live streaming. And it happened to be in the fall of 2017, and in between 2 live streams, I watched CNN and saw what had happened in Sutherland, Texas. I don't know if you remember that particular incident, but 25 people were murdered in a church in Sutherland, Texas. So I got on this live stream and I started talking about it. And here we are, you know, not even 2 years later, and there's 2 more incidents on the same day. And it's beyond sad. It's totally beyond sadness. Take a look at today's New York Times. There was an op-ed piece by Charles Blow. Charles Blow is an extremely talented writer for the New York Times, and he kind of breaks down what's going on there, and a lot of it is wrapped up in white supremacy, and a lot of it is wrapped up in white nationalism, and he kind of calls it for what it is. And until the nation really comes to grip with that, I don't think there's any reverse. Another thing that kind of went through my head, which was, I remember a mass shooting, and when I was in 6th grade, when I was in the 6th grade, there was a mass shooting in New Rochelle, which ties it back to Red Blue Talk and how politics and government impact people's lives. Folks, if you're on the live stream here with me, send me a heart or something, or also if you could please tell your friends about it by clicking the share button in the bottom left corner of your screen. When you click share, Facebook tells about 25 other people, and they can come in here and participate in the conversation as well. So when I was in 6th grade, there was a mass shooting in New Rochelle, and the gunman, it was on the south end of New Rochelle, the Neptune Moving Company, I think it was located on Wayman Avenue, experienced a guy goes into work at 8 o'clock in the morning, and he's got rifles and handguns, and I believe he murdered 5 people and himself. And I don't remember everything about it, but I remember when it happened. I remember talking about it in school and how stunning and how shocking it was. So today I went back and I looked at the Daily News from that day, from that incident. And the Daily News was absolutely clear that this guy was a Nazi and that he had a fascination with white nationalism, and that he was collecting guns in his apartment, and he had kind of Nazi memorabilia, and here we are, and it's, I don't know, what was 1977, 42 years later, 32 years later, I'm not doing the math in my head very quickly, I guess it's more like 42 years later, yeah, must be 42 years later, and it's the same story. And if anything, I think that the newspaper was amazingly straightforward about what was the motive and what was the cause. This was a guy who was radicalized by white nationalism, although the language might not have been in those exact terms. They spelled out in that article what was wrong with this guy. And it's still here, and it's accelerating, and it's kind of sickening. So there was a trending hashtag on Twitter today. Video games are not to blame. What is that doing? That is referring to our president alluding to the possibility that video games may be contributing to the spate of murders and massacres. It's absurd. It's disappointing. It's borderline bizarre. I don't see how anybody could really draw a linkage between video games and mass murder. Are the video games tend to be a little violent? Yes, they do. But I think that there is a clear existential threat that is presented by white nationalism that is not clearly being articulated by our president. And if you talk to, anybody, I think anybody with a pulse can tell you that the president is certainly not making it better. And remarks that have, kind of using video games as a basis for any logical reasoning makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah, so Glenn Butler says Trump was the blame, and I think that's what a lot of people are kind of alluding to. Glenn, I think you're right about that. Glenn, let me know what's happening with that oil spill situation on South 5th Avenue in Mount Vernon. I mean, I'm curious what's going on with that, especially in the context of everything that's happening politically in Mount Vernon, which is quite a complicated situation. So I have a bunch of video clips lined up that I want to show you. So let me go back to talking about, folks, if you can click the share button in the bottom left, that would make a big difference, because when you share it, other people find out about the show, and then we get more people in here, we get more comments, and it gets more interesting. The show is you. You got to tune in and get other people to tune in, and I cannot thank you enough for being here. Glenn Butler, Deborah Stern, and Paul Anthony Presendo Cuesta, thank you so much for joining. Glenn, give me a comment there so I know what's happening with that oil spill on 5th Avenue in Mount Vernon. And just to kind of give the picture for everybody, we're not talking about the Exxon Valdez here. We're talking about somebody delivered oil. Looks like it was a house. I think Glenn can clear that up. There was a home oil delivery somewhere on South 5th Avenue. in Mount Vernon. The delivery spilled a lot of oil in that little space between the curb and the sidewalk, like where the dogs walk, but it's a mess. And Glenn is pointing out that the water's now causing the oil to run off into the street and, of course, into the storm sewers. So we're trying to see if there's any relief in sight for that problem. And it ties back to the city, because I think that Glenn was trying to get some relief. I know that at one point he called the police. I don't know whether DPW got into the picture. And then the question is, what are the police busy doing, and who do you call, and how do you navigate City Hall when there's all this political chaos at the top? Let's kind of get into what's going on there, what the latest story is. Quick background, and then I have some clips to show you. So the national news has now picked up on what was a 2-week approximately interlude in which Mount Vernon considered itself to have 2 mayors. One that was appointed by the city council on the basis of the actual elected mayor having pleaded guilty to 2 misdemeanors on July 8th, 2019. 2 days later, the city council passed a resolution, and they named their city council president, Andre Wallace, to be the acting mayor because of the vacancy, which they defined as having been created by the mayor accepting a plea agreement in his election fraud case. I shouldn't say election fraud. The correct term there would be campaign finance fraud case. So the root of the problem for Mayor Thomas was that he was found guilty of misappropriating $12,900 in campaign funds, and there were other monies that were tagged incorrectly, and it involved inauguration funds, and it was a mess. And the 6 felony counts were drilled down into 2 misdemeanors, and he pleaded guilty to the 2 misdemeanors. So having done that, the city council took the position that the city charter allowed that the city council says, we looked in the charter, and the charter says if you're convicted of a misdemeanor, you are no longer the mayor, period, end of story. So they appointed the president of the city council to be the mayor. They swore him in. Everything's bumping along. I should also mention that part of the plea agreement with Mayor Thomas specifically said that he would remain mayor until September 30th, 2019. That was in the plea agreement. I think that might have been the root of all of these other problems. Maybe if the judge had just said, you're out of there now, we wouldn't have had quite much tumult, but he did, and we did. So now it's July 10. Andre Wallace is the mayor, appointed by the city council. Mayor Thomas refuses to acknowledge that appointment. He takes the matter to court, and in essence, he loses. So Mayor Thomas was seeking a temporary restraining order, which would prevent the city council from recognizing Andre Wallace as the mayor. And the Judge Ecker, last week declined that request for a temporary restraining order. 2 days later, the city council, so now, having done that, Andre Wallace is now validated as the mayor of Mount Vernon. Richard Thomas agrees to leave office. The moving van rolled up to City Hall. I understand it was at about 10 o'clock at night, last Wednesday night. Andre Wallace is the mayor. But wait, it's not over, because now the city council hooks a left turn, and they name Lisa Copeland, another member of the city council, to become the city council president. And by operation of the charter, the city council president is the mayor when there's a vacancy in the position of mayor. So in essence, they just appointed a new mayor. New conflict. Because now you have Andre Wallace saying, no, you made me the mayor. If you didn't want me to be the mayor, why did you make me the mayor on July 10th? I'm the mayor. And now they've appointed Lisa Copeland to be the president of the city council, which by action of the charter makes her the mayor. Conflict, new conflict, and that one is just happened on Friday, August 2nd. So the clips that I'm about to show you kind of step through the day of August 2nd, 2019. They were all recorded on August 2nd, 2019. And I must also mention something, which is that all these clips were shot by a very talented, energetic guy named Atif Coleman. I've known Atif for years. Very nice guy. His heart is absolutely in Mount Vernon. He's one of these Mount Vernon born and raised guys. I know his father, Jerry Coleman, who served on the Mount Vernon Board of Education for many years. And Atif has spent an untold amount of time chasing this story. He's out there. He's got his video camera. He's got his phone. He's got his batteries. And he is there hour after hour after hour. And on August 2nd, 2019, when I was part of the day at work and part of the day in bed because I was sick, in fact, you can kind of still hear it a little bit, though it is going away. Hello, Damon Jones. Hello, Tanika. Hello, Anitra, Gerald Hadley. Some new people in here, which is great. I sincerely appreciate that. The judge did not negotiate the deal. That was the Attorney General's office. Okay, so let me parse out what my friend Damon Jones is saying. What Damon is saying here in this comment is that when the judge in the Thomas campaign finance case read his verdict, the date on which Thomas would leave office, which was stated as September 30, 2019, what Damon is saying is that statement, that judgment, that part of the judge's conclusion, and I'm not an attorney, so I don't know what the right term is, but it's what the judge said at the end of the case, at the settlement of the case, because it didn't go to trial. Damon is saying that date was a politically negotiated date, and that Attorney General Tish James was engaged in the process of determining when Thomas would have to leave office. And I must say that I have felt from the moment that I heard that decision that would cause problems, because the natural end date of Richard Thomas's 4-year term is December 31st, 2019. He was elected in 2015. 2015 is when all these campaign finance problems actually occurred. It rambled on for years. He was indicted in 2018. The trial came up in 2019. Sorry, not the trial, but the settlement finally came along in 2019 after a primary, which he lost. He was the second highest vote getter, by the way. Lost the election by 200-something votes. 2 days after the election, June 25th was the election. A couple days later, maybe 4 or 5 days later, he's back in court in front of the judge. The judge worked out this plea agreement, or the Attorney General's office, I should say, worked out this plea agreement, and part of the plea agreement was you're done September 30th, 2019. Many people, not Damon alone, have indicated that this had broad political implications, that it really was, who knows what they were thinking. But in essence, it sent a message that one of the other terms of that was that Richard Thomas would not be allowed to serve in any public capacity for 1 year. 1 year. He's not fit to serve in a public capacity for a year, but yet he was sent back to the city of Mount Vernon to be mayor for another 85 days. And there was like a never-ending debate. I mean, it just there's no telling how much energy was created because of that choice to send him back to Mount Vernon. Hello, Zinga. Thank you for joining. And everybody, if you came in later, click the share button, because when you share it, other people find out about the show, and then we have a more interesting discussion, because without you, there is no show. So thank you for being here, and if you can share it out with others, I am forever in your debt. So all of that lead-in is to the following 5 clips, which I prepared for People Before Politics for last night, but I'm actually going to share it with you for the first time, and maybe I'll take them in next week with me when I'm on People Before Politics, 6 p.m. Sunday nights, Black Westchester, People Before Politics. Great show. You got to check it out. All right, let's go to the clips. Where are you, clips? All right. My first clip, let me tee this up properly. This is where it really helps to have let's transition to, there we go. So the first clip I want to play for you is the woman on the right there is Janice Duarte. She She was the acting president of the city council prior to Friday, or up to and including Friday. She was functioning as president of the city council. She stepped down as president of the city council, and the city council then had an election, and 4-1, with the one vote being acting mayor. It's confusing. Acting Mayor Andre Wallace, who's also a city council member, he voted against the resolution. There was a resolution on Friday to make Lisa Copeland, not this woman, but Lisa Copeland, who I have a clip of also, to have her become the president of the city council. The gentleman on the left is Marcus Griffith. He's a city council member. Let's play the clip.
Well, in the last week, we know that the acting mayor, the former acting mayor Wallace, issued a bid package for the remediation at Memorial Field. But he did so without the proper authorizations and approvals to do that from the council and from the Board of Estimate. And so our concern is that this is just a continued example of just disregard for proper government process. And if we are to ensure a smooth transition and restore the people's confidence in government, we need to make sure that everything we're doing is above board.
Okay, so what Janice is saying there, by the way, let me just make sure, because I am kind of an amateur TV producer here. Let me just make sure that you guys are actually hearing. Let me make sure that you guys are hearing this. Were you able to hear the audio on that clip? Give me a thumbs up or give me a yes in the comment box, just so that I'm absolutely positively sure that you guys are hearing the audio on that clip. I'm hoping that you are. Somebody give me a thumbs up. Chris Coe, thanks for joining. You guys are able to hear the clip? Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much. I most appreciate that. All right, thanks everybody. So, getting a few more people coming into the into the frame here. If you could click the share button so that other people find out about it. And I want to play another clip for you. So let me go back to Cliptown, and my second clip is, and so just a quick comment on what was going on in that last clip. So that was Janice Duarte, who was the president of the city council until Friday. And her stated reason for the city council taking this action to change city council presidents in the middle of the year, which effectively changes mayors 2.5 weeks after the last mayoral change, her stated reason was that she alluded to Wallace, acting Mayor Wallace, having taken actions which were inappropriate, related to the bid package around Memorial Field. All of this is entirely up for debate, even if they didn't like him or felt that something that he was doing was illegal. And I'm not saying that they thought that, but if they thought his actions were inappropriate or outside of the boundaries of the power of the mayor, which is certainly up for debate, I'm unclear that they had the power to remove a mayor, which effectively that's what they did. Now, what they'll stand on, what they will say, to present both sides of the story, the city council members are saying, we didn't do anything related to the mayor. All we did was elect our president of the city council, which they claim they do have the right to do. Now, this next clip brings into question whether or not the city council actually does have the right to change their first among equals, which is the president of the city council, mid-year. So this clip, let me get this ready for you here. This is Reggie Lafayette. Reggie Lafayette, there, so you can see it. Get this thing together here. Okay, and here we go. Clip number 2. This gentleman is Reggie Lafayette. He is the chair of the Mt Vernon Democratic City Committee. He is the party chair for all of these city council members, and he's also the chair of the Westchester County Board of Elections, which there are 2 commissioners. He is the Democratic commissioner, and a guy named Doug Colty is the Republican commissioner. So let's listen to what Reggie Lafayette has to say about what was going on Friday. This was also recorded Friday by Atif Coleman, my hero, who got in front of all these reporters and held a camera up there so that I have a piece of recording that I can use. So thank you, Atif Coleman. Thank you, Westchester.com, for letting me use the clip. Let's play the clip.
So what bothers you about this?
What bothers me about it looks like an awkward grasp for power. We just came out of court with Judge Ecker trying to set everything straight. The judge said in the court, whether he put it on record, it's on the record, it's not. He said the minute that Mayor Thomas signed pleading guilty to a misdemeanor, he forfeited his office as of July 8th. He said it. You heard it on the news. He said it. You were there, right? So which means that as of July 8th, Wallace was no longer a member of the council. He was the acting mayor.
Okay.
Right. So that was upheld, and now you come back causing controversy again.
Right.
And costing the taxpayers a waste of dollars to go back into court. So we all thought it had stopped and had ended. Didn't you all thought that? And now we're going back, wasting taxpayers' money. I'm here as a private citizen because anything else would make it seem political, but as a private citizen, you're wasting taxpayers' dollars on something that I'm pretty sure, from my experience of 15 years as clerk, that Andre will prevail because he's the acting mayor. The legislative body has no authority to keep switching mayors.
Okay, so let me switch out of that. So there you have it. You have Reggie Lafayette saying that, back out, that the council has no authority to keep switching mayors. I kind of believe him. I kind of think he's right. I mean, what he's saying is logical, and guy kind of knows what he's talking about. All right, he's been at this for a very long time. He was a city clerk in Mt Vernon. I think he knows the charter. So let me just make sure that I am aligned with what you guys are seeing here. So, Robin Elizabeth, it's an agreement, doesn't supersede the charter. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you. So that's Reggie Lafayette. That's the chair of the party. I have another clip I want to show you to take this to the next level. This gentleman is the...
Section 61
Hang on.
says that the act...
Let's start that over. Okay. This gentleman is... His name is Richard St.PAUL. He is the attorney for the city council, and he's basically presenting the position of the city council. Now check this out.
Section 61C of the charter says that the acting mayor, who was under Wallace, as far as the council is concerned, was the acting mayor.
But he is no longer city council president, therefore no longer acting mayor.
Cannot be removed based on the city charter until that new person takes office on the
No, that's not how. Excuse me. That's not how Section 61 reads. The acting mayor is the city council president, and because the acting mayor is the city council president, the acting mayor is also a member of the city council. Do you agree with that? Not to argue law with you, but that's what happens, right? Why is the acting mayor part of the city council? Because he is the city council president and fulfilling the role of acting mayor. And therefore, if he's still the city council president, sitting with the city council, he can then be elected or removed by the city council itself. The mayor, at any time. There's no prescription.
From meeting to meeting, there could be a new mayor,
Potentially, yes, but that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
Well, that's what just happened.
And the council gave the reasons for why that happened. And they had a good reason. They want to restore good order. They want somebody who's going to cooperate with the council, and that's why they selected Councilwoman Lisa Copeland as the president of the council, therefore acting mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, so there you have Richard St. John, who's the attorney for the city council, articulating the city council's position, which is that they can pick a city council president anytime that they want. The guy at the very end who said, "But how do you know we're not going to have another mayor every month?" or words to that effect. That was Ty Milburn from News 12, I believe, and his answer was, "Well, that's not going to happen." Well, how do we know that's not going to happen? Because it just happened, which is like stunning. Okay, so let's move on and kind of talk about what.
So the idea that I've put thought into this is
No, let's let's not look at that. It's the wrong thing. Okay, here we go. So now we move on and we hear.
So Reggie Lafayette just a couple minutes ago. This is a policy.
Watch this. So now we hear from Lisa Copeland. Lisa Copeland is a city council member who on Friday, August 2nd, was elevated to president of the city council, which as a result of the vacancy of Richard Thomas makes her the mayor of Mount Vernon. Now, one other detail which I have not raised up till this point is that there's something else happened on Friday. In addition to folks, if you're on here, if you can give me a couple of thumbs up just so that I know people are still watching, and also click the share button, because when you share it, other people find out about the show, and then we get more people into the discussion. So the other action that the city council took on Friday, August 2nd, is they worked out an agreement with former Mayor Richard Thomas in which he formally resigned, and they paid him $35,000 in exchange for his commitment to not sue the city council. So I should explain what that's about. In addition to the temporary restraining order, which Judge Ecker declined, Richard Thomas also brought another lawsuit against the city council to prevent it from taking any action on its July 10th decisions to make Andre Wallace the mayor. So basically, he had a lawsuit in place, and Judge Ecker encouraged him to drop the lawsuit. Well, the city council gave him $35,000 to make sure that that lawsuit went no place. So some are using the term hush money. You can decide for yourself, but it certainly doesn't look good. They gave him $35,000 to go away and never come back, and it appears to have worked. Okay, so now the next clip I want to show you is Lisa Copeland, who is now the acting mayor of Mount Vernon. Let's swing over. Here we go.
So Reggie Lafayette just a couple minutes ago. This is a power grab. It is illegal.
It's a power grab?
Yep. Say it on camera. But he's a city clerk in 35 years experience.
He's not on the city council? I disagree with that.
Isn't there a little irony here that the whole thing is to restore order and move things forward? It just seems like the process is devolving again into more lawsuits, more litigation, more.
We hope that we can resolve that by all sitting together without going to court. How's that? That's the hope.
So you're the acting mayor.
I'm the council president.
So she's not even, exactly being very clear that she's the acting mayor. She is the acting mayor under their own terms. I mean, the reason why they swore in Andre Wallace on July 10th was because they deemed him to be the acting mayor as a result of the operation of, I believe it's Article 25 of the Charter. So why else would they make her the president of the city council other than to make her the acting mayor? So that statement seemed very odd to me. But now as acting mayor, she'll have an opportunity to clear that up and clear the air. All right. So it would make sense now that we should hear from Andre Wallace, the man who is now really at the center of all this. And he goes on to explain a lot. Let's listen to this.
Break it down. Let me break it down for everyone so this way it's very clear.
Please.
I'm going to be very blunt in what I'm saying, and I'm not going to hold no punches. Okay? One, this conspiracy or gathering between Richard Thomas, Lisa Copeland, Sean Patterson, and Joe Spezio is not going to work. This whole thing with Jeffrey Buss, who is Joe Spezio's lawyer, and Joe Spezio was here while this was all happening, standing in the background watching. So I know exactly what's going on, and I'm not concerned with it. Because if anybody would have looked at the judge's ruling today that came out, it says that the mayor has vacated his office back in July 8th. And I was to take office back in July 8th. That has happened. That is the facts. That is the judge ruling. The judge did not rule that the mayor had vacated today. When the ruling stated and he was denied in court, okay, any of his TRO or his preliminary emergency injunction, okay, what has happened was the judge ruled that he had vacated the office on pleading guilty to his criminal offenses.
There you go.
Therefore, I have become the acting mayor at that time. What they are saying now, we're trying to give the mayor $35,000 to me, pushed by especially Duarte and the others, looks like some kind of payoff on cover-up to remove him.
All right, so he pulled us no punches. He's straight talking there. He believes it's a conspiracy. He names who he believes to be the co-conspirators. He specifically calls out Joe Spezio, who is a friend of the mayor's, and has had a role in City Hall for the past 3.5 years. So it's a saga, and there are so many sides to this die. I don't know how it's going to stop rolling ever. I don't know quite what to make of it. There's a lot of process issues here. There's a lot of when did this happen and when did that happen, and were you the acting mayor? Were you the mayor? Did you have the right to make decisions as acting mayor, or is there a 60-day hold down, or does that apply only when there's an actual mayor who just leaves temporarily and comes back as a result of a disability? There's just a never-ending spiraling series of questions that stem from Richard Thomas leaving office. So here's my my capstone thought on this whole thing. My thought is there was a vacancy, right? There was. It's fair to say now there was a something went wrong with the Thomas administration, and let me go sidebar on that as well. It's kind of sad. It was a very sad day last Wednesday when a U-Haul pulled up to Mt Vernon City Hall at 10:30 at night or whatever it was, and the mayor packed things from his office into the back of that truck. I've known Richard Thomas for a bunch of years now. He's a young man, but I've known him for probably, almost 15 years, certainly 12 to 13 years, closer to 15. And I have to tell you, the guy is young, but he's politically experienced. And he worked for Governor Patterson. He worked for a lobbying firm, energy company for some period of time. He was the governor's liaison in Westchester. He would show up at tons and tons of public meetings. He was active in something called DL21C. I think I have that right. DL21C was like a group of young Democrats around the New York area. So he was a politically experienced person, and I suspect that he had his eyes on running for mayor of Mt Vernon for a very long time, and he had his heart in public service for a very long time. He was on the city council for one term before he ran for mayor. And it's a pretty bad day when you have to leave office before your term is over as a result of a misdemeanor conviction. Tragic. I believe that he's a talented guy who will look inside of his heart and decide what he wants to do with the balance of his career, which is probably going to be a long one, regardless of what path it takes in public service or business or whatever he decides to do with himself. But last Wednesday was a bad day. Now, I think it's a bad day for Mt Vernon, but it didn't have to be a tragic day for Mt Vernon, because there is a system in place for the succession of power. Secession of power is the concept that regardless of who the person is, the power of the office will remain intact. And we talk about that usually in terms of, presidential power, and the fact that, if a Democrat loses an election and a Republican gets elected, there's a peaceful transfer of power. There's a succession of power. Power succeeds the individuals who hold the office. It's a basic idea within democracy. which is why I believe that the big loser last week, on Friday especially, was democracy. Because now there's this fluid definition of who's in charge. And it's defined by who wants power, not by what's going to be best for delivering the city services, for the police department, for DPW, for youth services, for the dozens and dozens of services that the local government is expected to deliver on a reliable basis. Quite candidly, you shouldn't even have to think that much about who your leaders are on a local level. It should just happen. So that was kind of sad, and that continues to be the challenge for Mount Vernon, and I think that it's going to ramble on. I think it's going to end up back in the courts. It's definitely not over. Lisa Copeland will have to... Oh, thank you, Vanessa, for giving me that update. I appreciate that. Let me go back here because I'm not... There we go. He was wrong and doing wrong. He turned on many people who cared for him. Many are happy his reign is hopefully over. I think the city... I agree, Robin Elizabeth. I believe that the city took a beating on this thing. Delia is threading on thin ice. There's a lot of messages that I didn't see, so I apologize for getting a little bit behind because my screen is not catching up. It is on my phone, but not on my monitor. So, Vanessa, thank you for letting me know that the video is buffering a little bit on your side. So that's what's happening. It's an ugly situation in Mount Vernon. We've got a lot to think about in the upcoming days and weeks. I'm going to be going to I think New Rochelle has a board meeting tomorrow night. I want to find out what's happening with the Laura Fayju superintendent appointment situation. If anybody has details on that, let me know. Glenn, let me know what's happening with that little minor oil spill on South Fifth Avenue in Mount Vernon. And folks, you've been tipping me on all kinds of interesting things that are going on, and I do read your notes. I try to respond to everything I possibly can. I'm so glad we had this time together tonight. Every 6:30 Monday night, that's when this show comes on live. I'm going to try to get some more guests on here. Thank you for joining me on tonight's clip show. I hope that it was enlightening and that you learned something about what happened last Friday in Mount Vernon, New York. And if you want to be added to the Red Blue Talk Facebook Messenger group, which is dinging and dinging and dinging all night long, 24 hours a day, you'll have to figure out how to turn the notifications off. Send me a DM. Hit me up either on Facebook Messenger, best way, or Twitter at RedBlueTalk, Facebook.com/RedBlueTalk, or YouTube.com/RedBlueTalk. Like, share, you know what to do. Thanks, everybody, and I'll see you next Monday at 6:30 for the Red Blue Talk live stream. Good night.